This episode is brought to you by Cellular Performance Institute. Is your body beat up and broken down? Look into stem cells today. It could change your life. Go to cellularperformanceinstitute.com. For all you see you there. Join Sam Tripoli and I on the road for Tinfoil Hat Comedy, June 13th in Cleveland, June 14th in Pittsburgh, July 18th and 19th in San Diego, August 1st in Boston, August 2nd in Connecticut, October 10th in Tulsa, October 11th in Oklahoma City. Go to samtripoli.com for tickets. See you on the road. I can't believe I won. Myth, the legend, Billy Corgan. What's up, Billy?
You know, there's plenty of conspiracy theories in the music business.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, with what's going on with certain people right now, I mean, there's plenty of things flying around. I hear a lot of stuff behind the scenes.
Oh, man. And then the whole Chris Cornell and Chester Bennington conspiracy theories, you know, that's pretty fucking scary.
Yeah, I've never felt that one. I mean, they're terrible tragedies, but no, I've never felt that there was anything there.
Okay. Yeah, let's stay away from that.
Yeah, don't get me in trouble, Eddie. I'm not.
No, dude. I know enough to stay away from that shit. Smashing Pumpkins, one of my all-time favorite bands, right up there, fucking top three. Depeche Mode, The Cure, Smashing Pumpkins,
wow.
Alice in Chains, Queensryche, boom, Kiss. You know, I was brought up with Kiss. You may not know this, Billy, but you know me as a jiu-jitsu guy, but I didn't start jiu-jitsu till I was 24. I've been a musician, songwriter my whole life, moved to Hollywood in 1991 to get the record contract and do all that shit, hung out on the Sunset Strip, had my hair down to my waist. I didn't start jiu-jitsu. You know when I started jiu-jitsu is when Yngwie Malmsteen got fat in like the 90s, and I was like, holy shit. I don't want to be a fat rock star. I don't want to play Dodger Stadium and be fat. So I joined the gym, couldn't hang with the gym. And I'm like, damn, this sucks. Weightlifting fucking is boring. So I thought, okay, let me try martial arts. I've always been a big Bruce Lee fan. So I got into karate. Then I got into like all these other martial arts. Then I landed in jiu-jitsu once I saw UFC 2 in 1994. Then I got into jiu-jitsu. So my family, when they heard I was doing jiu-jitsu, they're like, I was always known as a big pussy growing up. Everybody, like, I wasn't a fighter. So my family started finding out that I'm like doing jiu-jitsu. And then when I started teaching jiu-jitsu, they're like, what the fuck? What happened to your record deal, dog? What's going on with that? What about your new demo? Let's hear your new demo. So my whole family and the people I grew up with, they knew me as a wannabe rock star. But most people that know me, like through the Joe Rogan podcast, that I'm just this jiu-jitsu guy. You know, my music never made it, but the jiu-jitsu, you know, ended up paying my bills and you know, and so that's. But regardless of that, Smashing Pumpkins' first album, 1991, Gish, right? Or was it 90?
It was 91, yeah.
91 Gish. I kind of missed that. I was on that in 1991. I was more like, you know, I was in speed metal bands in the 80s. I played drums in speed metal bands. And then I got sick of it like in 89, 90, and then started doing like hip hop, rock, industrial, alternative. Like if Nine Inch Nails did rap, that's what I was trying to do.
Okay.
So I was getting deep into Depeche Mode, Nine Inch Nails, and missed Gish. Hadn't even heard about it, but it wasn't like a big commercial smash. But on the underground, in the indie world, it was like the biggest selling indie album at that point. Correct?
Yeah, at the time, it was the biggest selling independent album of all time.
God damn!
I think we sold 450,000 copies, somewhere around there. It was a thing.
Damn! And who's number one now?
I don't know, because, you know, that was around the time the record business started really changing a lot. I know our record at some point was eclipsed by The Offspring.
Okay.
But it was one of those things, and this is no slight on them. They're great guys. But it was like, this is when labels started kind of buying independent labels and kind of putting out music through independents, but they were really backed by the majors. So, but we were too. So that's why I'm saying there's no slight on them. I mean, yes, we had a big independent album, but on some level we were being supported by Virgin Records, who owned the label we were on. So I think by the time you hit the 90s, the idea of this kind of independent record label thing kind of went out the window. I mean, there are independent labels now in a different way, but in that era, it was the kind of the end of that, I think.
And so, Nirvana also
never heard of them.
Bleach. Never Bleach.
You didn't hear about my first album. I never heard Nirvana, so you got to get me up to speed on this.
Totally. So then, Butch Vig produces Gish, and it's the biggest selling independent album at that point. And then Nirvana wants to use Butch Vig for their next album, the big one, which was Nevermind.
Yeah.
And then he does that album. And he's still he's like, I guess he's like underground famous kind of, but it was Nevermind that blew his ass up, right? And then and then somehow he took some guitar recording techniques from you.
Yeah, I got a lot of heat on that that type of stuff. So, but I'm just going to say that. But please finish your line of questioning here.
No, go ahead. So what was that about? So
well, let me. Your timeline is sort of accurate, but you're missing a couple details. And if you want to talk music, I can go there.
Dude, we could go all night.
Okay, so Butch had a studio in Madison, Wisconsin, about a half a mile from the capital, called Smart Studios. And Butch had a couple major label record deals, but the bands had kind of not gone anywhere. So in 1990, he's this like independent producer working out of an old building. Nirvana had already done some demos with him. I think sort of around the time that we did a first record with him. It was a single that came out in Sub Pop. We did our album called Gish. I think the budget was for $20,000, and I think we spent $30,000. And then he got Kurt wanted him to produce what became Nevermind, but the label wasn't sure because Butch wasn't a known name. So they tried to bring in another guy who was a name guy. And Butch wasn't totally happy about it because he felt he was going to be sort of compromised in a relationship with someone that he didn't know, another producer. And then that producer ended up dropping out. So that's how Butch ended up being the sole guy on Nevermind. They did the record, and we were one of the first people to ever hear the record because Butch had come home for like 4th of July weekend or something. So we went up and we're sitting on a lake, and he said, "Hey, you want to hear the new Nirvana album?" which became Nevermind. And we were like, sure. He presses play, and it's just like, the first song I ever heard from that was Teen Spirit. And probably, we were probably under 20 people that heard the band's record at that point. We were like in this little club, and we knew right then it was going to be massive. And of course it turned out to be massive. So then after that record blew up, then Butch did our second album, which became Siamese Dream. So that sort of at least explains the lineage. It was a bit incestuous, but it was, if you really look at it from a beautiful perspective, we were all independent artists, and suddenly we're all kind of thrown in this hopper, and this thing just blows up overnight. And then to finish the story, Butch, with some of the guys that he'd been in bands with before that didn't work out, started Garbage around 1994, and he went on and had a bunch of success with his band Garbage. So that makes, I think, the story even cooler.
Yeah, Butch fucking Vig, dude. God damn. Mm-hmm. He does Nevermind. That fucking blows up. And now he's a huge producer, and he does Siamese Dream. And Siamese Dream is probably top 5 albums of all time. Siamese motherfucking Dream. Holy shit.
Yeah, thank you. It was a magical time. We were in it. We were touring constantly, and it's hard because sometimes you, like in a forensic way, you go back and you try to think like what made the time so magical. And I think it's just a lot of things. It's just the perfect storm, right people, right place, right band, right everything. And we just happened to be standing there when it happened.
About a month ago or so, I was somewhere online. I saw a video interview of you, and you were talking about how Disarm and Today were written when you were like ready to kill yourself. And like when I heard that, I'm like, oh my God, it makes sense. Like the songs really make.
Well, it does. It does have a connection because to what we're talking about, because we put out our first records. It's very successful. We're an independent band. Nobody, including Nirvana, thought that thing was going to happen the way that it did. So now we're signed to a major label, and now they're looking at me like, okay, you guys got to basically match what just happened. The pressure just went up by like 50 times.
Wow.
And we had nothing to do with the pressure, but it wasn't a bad pressure. But I mean, suddenly we're supposed to be, okay, now you got to get songs on the radio. Well, we never thought like that before. Now you got to get, if your video doesn't get on MTV, you're dead. I mean, you're dead. So suddenly was a lot of weird pressure that came in. And so I went through a lot of depression because I just thought, I can't do this. I mean, I'm not built for this. I'm not, insane like you need to be. I'm insane in the wrong way, not the good way, So, I went through really, really long depression. And then when it finally broke, I wrote those 2 songs kind of in a 24, 48 hour period. And it just kind of changed the direction of my life from there.
Yeah, man. Disarm the chords. They're so simple, but the way you go into the chorus and how the first chorus is like twice as long as the second chorus. It's like it's a different version. Like, and then the way the chords go after the chorus, after the first chorus, and then at the end of the song, you're just like switching. It's so simple, yet I'll never.
No, it's honestly,
like, God damn.
Excuse me. It's one of those songs. Like if you said, "Hey, you're done." What are the songs that really meant something to you? We know what the world thought because you can look at the Spotify numbers or something, right? But what are the songs that really meant something to you? And that's up there. That song was so valuable to me. I mean, the fact that it's an important song to fans means a lot to me, but it's really a song that's very personal to me. So it was shocking that I wrote something that felt so personal and so emotional. And then people just gravitated towards like crazy. And then, of course, the MTV video was also very big for its time. That was directed by Jake Scott, who was Ridley Scott, the director's son. He did a beautiful job. And so again, magical times, right? If you could recreate it, you would. But who knows what put those pieces together?
Yeah, stem cells, they could do some wild shit down there.
I got the stem cells in my shoulder. My shoulder was jacked. I went down there, worked, man.
Eric Anders' neck was up, and then he went down and got stem cell treatment. Now it doesn't bother him at all anymore.
I definitely recommend CPI. It's changed my life. The best stem cell clinic in the world.
I just come and I do stem cells to make sure that I'm resetting my body and staying healthy.
It regenerates tissue, reduces inflammation. The results are amazing.
CPI stem cells is where you want to go. There's no other place in town. They do the best work in the world. I feel incredible.
If there's anything causing you to not live the quality of life that you like, then this investment is more than worth it.
When it comes to the science of stem cells, no one comes close to CPI. There's not even a close second.
For a free doctor call to see if stem cells is the right option for you, visit us at cpistemcells.com.
The video, it's one of those videos. There's only a few from the 90s that stand the test of time. Like you could release that thing now and you wouldn't even know it was an old video. I mean, that one, the way it was shot and everything about that song, the strings, the orchestration, the vocal melodies, your fucking voice in it is just the one thing I remember about that song that I'll never forget. I don't remember a lot of everything, but there's certain things I'll never forget. I used to DJ at a strip club while I was trying to get a record deal. I was a DJ at a strip club for 10 years, and there was this stripper named Charlie, beautiful girl, and she loved you guys. And she'd be standing on the side, in her underwear, waiting for someone to ask her for a dance or whatever, and then I'd play Disarm, and I'll never forget her saying, "My love." She would always mouth that, "My love." Like I'll never forget that ever. Every
Where's
time
Charlie now, though? We need Charlie.
I don't know where she's at, man, but that was 1993 or 4 or something like that.
Wow.
But when I first heard Smashing Pumpkins, I'm coming from the metal side, I'm coming from the goth side, I'm coming from industrial. I was ready to pull the plug on hair metal. I did like some hair metal, and I did like the fact that hair metal got you pussy, because I had long hair, but I was like in this, when I was into Slayer and Metallica, we would still go to Warrant concerts for the girls. Like we would never see the band, but Warrant's playing with Trickster. We get tickets and we just looking for girls. So I appreciated that, and when Guns N' Roses blew up, it was like, dude, like regular secretary chicks wanted long-haired dudes. Like, because when Poison and Motley Crue blew up, like 84, 85, metal got big, but the only chicks a long-haired dude could get are chicks that were into metal. So 85, 86, there was a lot of chicks in the metal, but they had to be in the metal to date a long hair dude. Like regular R&B chicks, regular hip hop chicks, they weren't dating no long hair dude. Not until January 1988, Guns N' Roses blows up. That made it like mainstream. Like whoever had long hair was getting pussy. It was fuck, and it only lasted 3 years, and it was insane. And then Nirvana killed the pussy. As soon as fucking Teen Spirit comes on, boom, they pulled the plug on that shit. I remember going to clubs, going like, walking around. There's like no girls. Girls were repulsed. They went from, I went from. You had long hair too, so you went through it too. But in Hollywood, it was insane, man. You go from having no competition because most people didn't have long hair. I would look at people with short hair and go, feel sorry for them. I would have nightmares that someone cut my hair and I would wake up and go, oh my God, I still got my hair, because it was so important to get laid. But then it went from that, it's like the Twilight Zone, to Nirvana coming in and making long hair disgusting again. So we went back to being losers. I held on till 1997 though. Everybody cut their hair. Everyone said, dude, you got to cut your hair, dog. You got to cut your hair. It's over, dude. I'm like, I ain't cutting it. I ain't fucking cutting it. And because I worked at the strip club, I could still have long hair and I could still get laid a little bit. Like there was at least one metal chick per shift, and I was still kind of getting, but if I wasn't working at the strip club, oh man, I would have had to cut my hair. Oh, but anyways, the first song I heard,
I learned so much in that few minutes. I'm still kind of processing it all.
I'm sorry, dude. I'm sorry. I talk too much. That's a big problem I have. But the first song I hear is Cherub Rock. I heard on KNAC. And I fucking love your voice. I love the tones you put together, the way you stack your shit like in a blank page. The vocal performance on Blank Page on the record, I'll never get tired of that shit. Your voice on that is so fucking beautiful. The way you layer your falsetto with the low shit. I love that shit, man. I never get tired of Blank Page. But my first initial I didn't know how to take it. I'm like, your vocals are different on Cherub Rock. So I thought, and then it was hard to really grasp the music because that opening lick, that's like a Slayer riff, but without.
No, it was actually kind of ripped off of Rush.
Yeah, the riff, they go.
Oh yeah, okay.
That's like a psychedelic Slayer riff. It was like it's a cool riff. But I didn't know how to take it at first because it wasn't like evil. It was like, damn, it was groovy. But it was hard for me to accept it. Cherub Rock, the first couple listens, I was like intrigued, but I'm like,
Well, it's the difference between like say major and minor keys. That's a major key, so it was too happy for you. You see?
Yeah, I wasn't ready for it. Now, Cherub Rock's one of the greatest songs of all time. Now, and what got me to go back and really have a different outlook on Cherub Rock was when I heard Disarm. They played Disarm. I'm like, oh shit, this is that same band? Holy shit, I fucking get it now. And then I get Siamese Dream and every song, Quiet, Space Boy, Luna, everything, Mayonnaise. Oh, Today, come on, dog. Today, I mean, that whole album is unfucking believable. I never get tired of it. It's on I got this grand playlist of all my favorite songs of all time. It's like about a 9-hour playlist. I always play it at my school. Anytime I'm teaching, the playlist is on. Smashing Pumpkins pops up at least once every 30 minutes.
Well, thank you for the compliment. Yeah, it was an interesting time, Like I said, somehow we responded to the pressure in a way that worked out for us. It was definitely that moment in your life where you either kind of, I don't know, not to make it about standing in an octagon, but there's those moments in your life where it's like, okay, it's now. You know what I mean? There's nowhere to run. There's nowhere to hide.
Dude, what was that like when Cherub Rock was the first single, correct?
Yeah, and we did a cool video with Kevin Kerslake, but MTV didn't like the video and it didn't test well. So within a couple weeks, the record label started panicking. Because they thought Siamese was going to be a big record, but it was off to a kind of a shaky start from that end. And like I said, if you didn't get on MTV, you were dead.
Yeah.
So that's when the whole thing started with, well, what's going to be the next song? It was the song Today. And they said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I got this idea where I'm an ice cream truck driver. And if anybody knows that video, where I play an ice cream truck driver.
That was your idea.
Well, they said no fucking way. But then the video blew up like massively. And then the good upside of it was once the video blew up, then they said I could do whatever the fuck I wanted. So that's when we went crazy.
Oh, damn. So today blows the fuck up. And how were you feeling? Because that was Cherub Rock. It was kind of shaky. And then today blows the fuck up. That's your first taste of a global
Oh yeah.
success.
So then you're in that, magazine cover, Saturday Night Live. You're in this other thing. And that's when you start to really feel like, oh shit. You're just dumb, and you go in a store, to buy, I don't know, pop. You know what I mean? It's like, and somebody turns to you like, are you the guy? And it's like, the first 500 times it happens, you're like, this is wild,
Yeah.
Because
girls just throwing themselves at you.
No, actually, I don't know what it was about me or us. We didn't really have that.
No,
we never really had that. I think we were just too weird or too, like, what's funny is I look back and I see pictures of me from, especially when I started shaving my head. I look pictures of me now. I mean, if I was coming out now, with that look, I mean, I'd be right on the line. I mean, this is like, basically you see a lot of people with that look now, but back then it was like, I looked like some kind of alien or something.
Oh man. So today,
I'll put it this way: if I attracted anybody, I attracted a lot of goth women who needed like a kitten to mother type of thing.
Yeah.
That's who I seem to attract.
And then the next single is Disarmed, right?
I think so. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Or was it Rocket?
No, Rocket was fourth. So you're right. So it was Cherub Rock, Today, Disarm, and Rocket.
So today you're fucking it's everything's going crazy. And then Disarm takes it to a whole nother level, right?
Yeah, because then I think you get into that thing where it starts to cross over. You start getting some play on pop radio, and the way America works is if you reach a broader audience with a song, like, you don't have to be a rock fan to like the song Disarm. It was one of those type of things.
Yeah.
And so once you kind of cross over, to use the industry parlance, then you start to see this whole other audience that is recognizing you. And it's like, I mean, the joke I always make is you reach a point where the 7-year-old knows who you are and grandma knows who you are. And that's when you've fucking done something crazy. Because it's like, how does grandma know who I am,
Yeah. Yeah. Fuck. Yo. And then I heard, it's been mentioned a few times that you played all the bass and most of the guitar. Is that correct?
Well, that's the short version of the story. It involves Butch. When the band was trying to get a record deal in the late 80s, we found this guy who had a studio in a basement. And so we all went in there and started working. Well, the band got bored within a week. So they just banged off and left me alone to work. They didn't give a shit, They just said, you deal with it. So I made all the early demos pretty much on my own. And those are the demos that ended up getting us a record deal. Well, when we went in to make the first album with Butch, and we had recorded with Butch, but it was more of a kind of a one-day thing. So now we're making Gish with Butch in 1990, and Butch goes, "Why doesn't it sound like the demos?" And I go, "Well, because I played all this shit, And he goes, "Well, that's what we need it to sound like. This is not going to work with these guys playing it like this." And so I said, "Well, you gotta tell them. I mean, I'm not taking that bullet, And so he sat them down, and they said, "Okay, that's the way it's got to be to make it work." So I ended up making most of the first record with just me and Jimmy, the drummer. And so we had this kind of unspoken or spoken agreement, which was like, okay, it's going to be different on the next record, but everybody needs to show up prepared. So by the time we went to Marietta, Georgia in 1992 to make Siamese Dream, there was this expectation that was kind of a one-off thing. And then now that the band had been on tour for a year and whatever, okay, now everybody's going to get a different chance to contribute. Well, once we got in the studio, Butch said, "No fucking way, go back the other way." So then they were pissed because they felt they had been not lied to, but sort of the door had been opened that it was going to be different the second time around. And Butch just said, "No fucking way. It's got to be you." And by the way, to give it some context, since what we're talking about, in the shadow of the Nirvana record, and don't forget Pearl Jam had also been huge too, Butch felt a tremendous pressure to follow up Nevermind. Yeah. So he wasn't about to go down with the ship with like, hey, it'd be really nice if you could play this part better, but I got the guy sitting here and me, you know, Billy can do it in 20 minutes. You got to spend four hours, and I don't like how you're playing it. So it was like a coach making a call off the bench. Like,
Yeah.
You know, bring Mike back in to hit some jumpers, you know? So it's like, I was put in a really tough spot. So it was what it was, but it was always sold as me, like, you know, being mean and not letting anybody play. It had nothing to do with me. Now, to be honest and fair about it, I felt I was the better choice. But if Butch had said, no, you know, we got to do it this other way, and everybody's got to participate equally and whatever, I would have said, okay, because here's the guy who's just made the biggest fucking rock record in the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he made the call, but somehow I ended up with the rep, you know?
Yeah. You know, that's not as uncommon as people might think. Like Metallica, James plays all the rhythm, right? And Kurt only plays the leads, right?
That's what I've always heard. I've never discussed it with them, but that's always been the thing I heard.
Yeah.
It makes a certain sense. I will say, this is all to anybody who's a musician, you know, pre-Pro Tools, and, you know, you came up in metal, like whether it's Slayer or whatever, like pre-Pro Tools, to play as tight as the guys in Slayer played, or as tight as Hetfield plays, or as tight as Mustaine plays. I mean, you had to really fucking good to do that shit.
Yeah.
Pre-Pro Tools. Now everybody can fake the fuck out of anything. And they can make your grandma sound like she's 14, you know what I mean? But like, so in that day and age of tape, in order to play tight at that level, it was a lot of pressure.
Yeah. You know, I'm a huge, massive Kiss historian. And, you know, that wasn't uncommon at all in Kiss. Like, Peter Criss didn't play on Unmasked. Everybody thought he played on Unmasked. That was Anton Fig. That was Ace Frehley's drummer from his solo band.
Yeah.
And, like, Gene Simmons didn't play bass on a whole shit ton of songs. He didn't give a fuck. And, like, Paul Stanley ended up playing bass on a lot of the shit. So it's not that uncommon. Even some Kiss solos, like in Kiss Alive 2 on that fourth side where they had some studio tracks, that was all Bob Kulick. Wouldn't even, like, Ace only played on Rocket Ride. I don't know if you're a big Kiss fan at all.
I am a big Kiss fan. In fact, you're setting me up a softball, because on my podcast soon is going to be, I just did a two-parter with Paul Stanley.
So you were a Kiss fan.
Oh yeah, I had the Kiss. I had the Kiss 1776 type poster with the bloody headband.
Yeah,
I had that poster on my wall in '76. You know, so I've been listening. Got almost 50 years now, which is pretty wild.
Wow, that 1978 Kiss meets the Phantom of the Park. That's what did it for me, man. NBC Friday night of the movie.
Yeah,
I'm 8 years old. And everybody was talking shit. Like in 78, everybody was talking shit on Kiss, but I'm 8 years old. I don't even know what a sellout is. I didn't even know their music. I just knew at school people were saying, hey, you're going to watch the Kiss movie tonight? And my stepdad was into classic rock, and he hated Kiss. So I was all like, yeah, no, fuck that. I'm not going to watch that stupid movie. Kiss sucks. And I was like, yeah, Kiss sucks. All the kids in elementary, yeah, Kiss sucks. Who's going to watch that movie? But damn, me and my brother, we fucking couldn't wait. We were like in front of that TV and just watching all those screaming fans. And I was like, that changed my life. I'm like, I want that. I want to be on stage just like that. And I went to Gemco, got Kiss Alive, didn't even know what a live record was. I just knew I needed Rock and Roll All Night. I knew I needed that, found that motherfucking song, bought the album, had no idea what a live record was, put the needle on, and then the crowd swelling up right in the beginning of Deuce. And I'm like, what is this, a football game? And I didn't even know what the hell to expect, but was completely blown away. It changed my life. I had no idea they were right in the middle of selling out. When I got Unmasked, I'm 10 years old. I didn't know there was a poppy bubblegum disco. I just loved it. I loved The Elder. I loved all that shit.
Well, if you get a chance, my podcast, which is called The Magnificent Others, I interviewed.
I see it. I watch that.
Have you seen my interview with Gene?
I seen the one with Gene, but Paul Stanley isn't out yet?
No, it's coming. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, because in my interview with Gene, you know, I was arguing with Gene that Kiss is better than he thinks it is, which is a very interesting thing to argue with Gene about, because, you know, you can't really tell Gene anything, because as far as he's concerned, he knows Kiss better than anyone, which he does. But I thought it was an interesting take to try to argue and say, look, I think the band's actually better than than you give the band credit for, and here's why. And so we had this kind of fun, 20, 30-minute argument about Kiss's musical legacy.
Yeah, the crazy thing about Gene is, he has a reputation for being, I don't know, like arrogant or whatever. I'm a massive Kiss fan, but I'm not a massive fan of like things he says, like in interviews sometimes. But the one thing about him is you would think he would be proud of his bass playing and proud of his voice, but he never says anything good about his bass playing or his voice. He never brags about. He brags about everything else in Kiss, but he never brags. And his bass playing is great, and his voice is great. When Kiss did Unplugged, that MTV Unplugged, dude, his voice was on fire. I don't know if you remember that. They did when he did Going Blind, and then
Going Blind,
A World Without Heroes.
Going Blind is one of his greatest vocals.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
what a song.
To me, when I think of like peak Gene, Dr. Love, calling Dr. Love.
Oh,
I mean, the way he sings that song, it's so unique, and I don't know. I have a lot of affection for Gene. I think I put it to you like this, and you've certainly met your share of celebrities. There's the public version and there's the private version, and I've just learned through the years not to pay much attention to the public version.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's kind of like it's I work in wrestling. We call it a work, right? It's a work. How many times have we seen UFC feuds where it's like guys hate each other, and then the minute the fight's over, they're hugging and I love you, bro. And it's like, was it a work or you know what I mean? So I just tend to sort of focus on what I feel is in there. And I don't think you can be as successful as Kiss has been without real heart and real love of music. And they've done it. I mean, they killed it in at least three different decades.
Yeah. And I love The Elder. That was the
I'm still working on that one. As a Kiss fan, I'm still like, I don't quite get it. I'm waiting for that moment. I mean, maybe I need to take a bunch of LSD or something, but I'm waiting for that moment where the Elder is like, I get it now, Bob Ezrin.
It's so good. The Oath, you're familiar with The Oath, right? The song?
Oh yeah. No, that's a cool song, but I'm saying I just don't get the
story. Yeah, the story's like some kind of shitty ass Lord of the Rings or something. But, but the music is fucking great. Under the Rose. Oh man, that's one of my all-time.
Well, Bob Ezrin is one of the great producers, and of course, did Alice Cooper, did The Wall with Pink Floyd, and I even, I met Bob a bunch of times through the years, but also at one point we were thinking about working with Bob. So you would think it would be a perfect no-brainer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In that situation, a concept record, and obviously Bob had done. Did he do Destroyer? Maybe Bob.
He did Destroyer, The Elder, and Revenge.
I mean, Destroyer is one of the great rock albums of all time. What is it, like God of Thunder with kids in the? It sounds like a Godzilla movie. I mean,
my God,
and Detroit Rock City. I mean, that shit's fucking.
Do you know it was pretty much a disappointment when it first came out? It was kind of like a sellout.
I loved it.
Right when it first came out. That's
a great
people
record.
Were disappointed. Kiss were mad at Bob Ezrin. I love listening to producers on podcasts. Like, I don't know how many Bob Ezrin podcasts I've listened to, a bunch. But he, everyone thought it was too polished compared to their first three albums. Because like Hotter Than Hell was like so dirty and muddy. And you're familiar with Strange Ways, correct?
Oh, you mean the Depeche Mode record?
No. Strange Ways, the song on Hotter Than Hell. Strange Ways. Peter Criss sang it. Ace Frehley.
Okay, that one doesn't come to mind. But I'm not a huge fan of the first two records, mostly because I don't like the production. Yeah,
the production was pretty bad, but the solo on Strange Ways, it's
okay.
Insane.
As soon as we get off this, I'm running to the.
So now you guys are blowing the fuck up, Siamese Dream, and now you're gonna put out a double album. Tell me the thought process behind that. Melancholy.
It's very simple. I got sick of us being compared to the other grunge bands, and I didn't really feel we were a grunge band. I mean, I'm okay with the label now because it sort of connotates a period of music, but at the time it was sort of annoying to me because I felt we were doing a lot. Like. No grunge band was doing Disarm, for example, with strings and I was more trying to be the Beatles and Led Zeppelin, So I didn't really get it. And so I got annoyed. So I said, okay, let's make a record that none of these other bands can make. And that's what we set out to do.
Amazing record.
Thank you. And went to the label and said, I'm going to make a double record. And they said, the hell you are. You know what I mean?
Oh, they said no at first?
They said no 50 times. I mean, I don't know what I did. Somehow I talked them into it. They just kept saying, no, there's no way. And they kept using Use Your Illusion as the reason not to do a double record.
Mm.
They were like, it hurt Guns' momentum, and the records didn't sell the same, and da 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 da, and that's why they split the record apart, and blah 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 blah. And so then they at some point they said, okay, well we'll allow you to make a double record, but like Use Your Illusion, you're gonna have to split it into 2 single releases. And I said, no, it's got to be one whole record. And so I fought that for months, and
wow.
It was an intense process. But again, I don't think it was because I was so smart. I think it was just because we had a lot of momentum, and they didn't want us to. I guess they thought I knew what I was doing. I mean, which I kind of was, but I mean, it was more bravado than reality. I mean, you imagine going in a record label and millions of dollars are at stake. Your future is at stake. Tell them you're gonna, do a double record, fighting, and then you walk out the room and a Butch Vig goes, or a producer goes, so where are the songs? Oh, I haven't written them yet. I don't fucking have shit. You know what I mean? I'm going to do a 4-hour movie. You know what I mean? Well, what's the movie about? I don't know. You know
wow.
what I mean?
Wow.
So I wrote a check with my mouth that I couldn't quite cash. And that began the real process of making the record. Yeah.
So many good songs on that album. I mean, obviously Tonight, one of the greatest songs ever written. I don't know what's better, Tonight or Disarm. I don't know. They're right there. I never get tired of Tonight. You never get tired of that shit.
It's a beautiful song.
Yeah. But I also love We Only Come Out at Night. Like I'll never get tired of that one, especially the verses.
Okay, I have a story for you on that. I mean,
okay, hit it.
Pumpkins fan. I would assume your audience doesn't know my Pumpkins fans know the story, but I was at a music store. Remember when we were kids? They called them zithers, but it was like a strings, and you press the button and it would play a chord. You know what I mean? They used to call them auto harps or zithers. It'd be like you press a button and it would play the chord for you. Zing. Press another button, different chord. Did you ever have that when you were a kid?
That sounds familiar, but
okay. So anyway,
I get it.
I'm at a music store, and I'm a rich rock star, so I see this fucking zither, so I buy it, and I brought it into rehearsal, and I showed the band. They started laughing at me. Like, that's so stupid. Why would you buy a zither? That's like the worst thing you could buy. That's something little kids play. And I said, okay, fuckers, you watch. So that night I went home and I wrote that song on the fucking zither.
Yeah, that's the chorus, right? The chords in the chorus.
Yeah. But I'm saying I wrote the whole song on the zither. And I came in the next morning and showed the band. I said, fuck off.
Even the verses?
I wrote the whole song on the goddamn zither.
Oh, shit. Okay.
But it was a way to tell the band to leave me the fuck alone.
I thought it sounded strange. I just thought it was like some weird guitar effect.
No, it's anybody, I don't know, maybe it's the product of the Illinois school system. But yeah, we all had zithers.
That's awesome, man. And you know what's one of my favorite parts of Melancholy is that piano piece at the very end after Farewell and Good Night. You know what I'm talking about? That little piano piece you play at the end?
I don't remember it, but I wouldn't.
I
don't remember that.
Oh,
it's been 30 years, Eddie. I've taken a lot of blows to the head,
The album ends with a beautiful piano piece and it fades out. Fuck. I love that shit, man. I love it.
Oh, you know what you're talking about? You're talking about the same thing that starts the record, but it's a different version of it. Yeah, so that's the way we call the Melancholy theme. I didn't know how to play piano, so I bought a piano, and same thing. People are like, "Oh, you bought a piano? Do you know how to play?" No. So I taught myself how to play. Never had any lessons.
That's one piano piece that I have in the chamber. I can play that, and anytime I get behind a piano, like I'm at a friend's house or there's a piano at the airport, I'm gonna play that. I learned how to play that
that's cool.
When the album came out, and it's one of those. I got like 5 piano pieces in the chamber. You know what I mean? And that's one of them. Also, Don't Know What You Got Till It's Gone, Cinderella. That piano, have that in the chamber too.
Very nice. Great song too.
Oh, one of the greatest ballads of all time for sure. So now Melancholy, tonight blows the fuck up. There's no sign of going down. It's all fucking skyrocketing, right?
Yeah.
And you guys you opened for Kiss at Dodger Stadium.
Well, that's 97. That's
That was later.
That was towards the very, very end of that cycle. So the album came out in 95. So imagine we've been touring for 2 years and everything's massive.
I was there. I was like, had the worst seats possible. They had me in the janitor's closet, man.
That's when they were doing like the crazy 3D Psycho Circus and Peter with like a 3D movie from the 50s. Peter with the drumsticks would do one of these. And, it's funny, when I interviewed Paul Stanley recently, we ended up talking about that tour and that show. And I wasn't going to be like, remember we opened for you, Dodger Stadium. And so he's talking about it. He's like, and you guys opened for us. It was like, oh, cool. You remember, I mean, I didn't want to be that guy. Like, remember when I opened for you that one time? Now
it was just one show?
I think we only opened the one show. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it was because we were sort of at the end of a cycle. So there was no real consideration that we were going to go out on a big tour. But it was awesome. I mean, sold out Kiss on the start of a new tour, sold out Dodger Stadiums. They had Dodger Stadium. They had carnival rides, Kiss in 3D. I mean, the whole thing.
Now, when you're blowing up, do you remember the first big check you got where you looked at the check and you were like, oh, my
No, God. I honestly, I don't really remember it. What I really remember was, and I want to say this in a way that's sort of at least somewhat obscure, but I remember the first time I had to sign a quarterly tax check, and it was 7 figures. Is that right? Is that the numbers? Yes. So it was a 7-figure quarterly tax check. Damn. And this is back, pre-FedEx. So you get it in the mail. And the guy calls me up and says, okay, you got to sign this. And I look at the number and it's like, it's an astronomical number. And I was like, where's this number coming from? He said, well, you've reached a point of earning where now they're projecting what you're gonna make. So you have to sign the taxes in advance and pay in advance for money you haven't made yet. So I just remember signing that check and thinking, oh my God, this is like more money than I even thought I had. It was like, so my joke back then was, I'd be walking down the sidewalk with a friend, and I go, you see this sidewalk? And they're like, yeah, we're walking on it. I bought this sidewalk. This is my sidewalk. I own this sidewalk. I paid for it. So it's a bad joke, but that's when you really start to think like, oh my God, this is so crazy. You're making this kind of money, which is amazing. And then you're basically turning and signing it right back out the door, whether it's to managers or accountants. And that's when it gets goofy, because then you start to really understand the value of money in a way that you have it. Because if somebody dropped $1 million in your lap when you're a kid, you'd be like, oh my God, my life is made. I can do whatever I want. I'm going to do this and that. But when you get to that other churn, you got mortgages, you got ex-wives, you got, what I mean? It's like that whole swirl is where it starts to do your head in.
Yeah, keeping track of everything is a nightmare, right? It's like,
well, the problem is it's not a business built on trust. It's a business built on exploitation, and no one knows how long you're going to last.
Yeah.
So I remember talking to somebody pretty high up in the music business one time, and I said, how do you guys think about this? Because at that point I was kind of a made man. I sort of survived the thing, And they said, well, most people don't last but 4 or 5 years. So we just look at it as like, how do we get the most out of the situation for 4 or 5 years? We're not necessarily trying to hurt the person, but we're not under the assumption they're going to stick around. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And I said, well, what do you do when they stick around? You know what I mean? Like, what happens when they survive the cut? You know what I mean? Like, let's say they make it to the major leagues. They go, oh, you just pay you more. To them, it was like, it wasn't a big deal that they were exploiting a whole group of artists that were in that 4 to 5 year window. As far as they were concerned, they really only had to worry about it if you made it past that.
Yeah. It's the music business is, it almost doesn't exist anymore like it did in the 80s and 90s. Like 80s and 90s, you had to get your songs on the radio and you had to get them on MTV. Otherwise, you failed, basically.
Yeah. What I would say to you quickly in that is, it was a messed up system, but it was a simple system, right?
Yeah.
You had to get signed to a big label. Okay. Number one. Number two, if you got signed at label, you had to get publicity somehow. MTV, Rolling Stone magazine, whatever. 3, you had to have enough of a live reputation that people would want to come see you play. They couldn't rely on YouTube clips or something like that. And that was it. That was the game, basically. And then you would get good or bad reviews and be in magazines. Now, and I get asked this question so much. I mean, I probably get asked 50 times a year by parents who have kids who want to be in music. And they want me to give them some inside baseball on how to, and I say, I don't even know where to tell you to start.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there are people in this world right now who have tens of millions of followers that couldn't get arrested. Nobody's listening to what they're doing. So they're like a social media personality who happens to do music, but nobody gives a shit about the music. And then there are people who are very successful musically that couldn't get arrested because they're not able to get the marketing. So nobody knows who they are. Yeah. So it's this weird, I call it the Wild West, right? It's like no one, and you can sit in, and you've been in those rooms, you sit in those boardrooms and no one but nobody can tell you what success is. I mean, yes, they can say what Taylor Swift's success is. That's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
90 football stadiums full of people, Metallica playing 2 nights in Soldier Field. And that part's easy. That's like big checks. Outside of that, everybody just kind of shrugs their shoulders and they don't really know what success is anymore.
Yeah, there's no goal. Like there's no, like before the internet, it was radio and MTV, and people, the connection from radio, like your songs on the radio, and everybody in that region is vibing to your song at the same fucking time. No internet. Everyone's listening to it at the same time. Same thing with MTV. You watch a music video on MTV, millions and millions of people are watching it at the exact same time. And that creates it kind of like the level of rock stardom it creates is like so unnatural and so warped that you got Guns N' Roses, you got Metallica, you got Smashing Pumpkins, you got Depeche Mode, like all these larger than life gods because they're all on MTV. And now everything is on the internet and everything's all spread out. So that level of rock stardom doesn't even seem possible.
Well, and don't forget this, like, let's take a guy like Prince. Let's say Prince comes out and you, Eddie Bravo, isn't a fan. Well, you're going to come in contact with Prince's music, whether you want to or not.
Yeah.
So you might become a fan by the 8th song you hear or the 12th song or this album because your friend had, it was a different land of opportunity because you just kept rubbing up against people in a way that you wouldn't. Now it's so genre specific and the recommendations by AI are so genre specific that bands come and go and you don't even know that they existed. And that's no disrespect to the bands. You just don't know they're there.
Yeah. Yeah. I was at Coachella a few years ago. All I knew was one band, Kid Cudi. And I've been in the I consider myself a music head. When it comes to the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and most of the 2000s, I DJ'd. It was my job to know what was going on. I would go through Billboard magazine and study the top 100. I go to Coachella, I don't know any of these bands. I remember, I guess there's Tame Impala or something like that. And I'm like, who is this band? There was tens of thousands of fans screaming. And I'm like, I never heard of this fucking band. There's like huge bands that you never heard of.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So I think we're entering into, let's call it a new age of how things are going to work. I think the quick version is, I think it's really going to be about the relationship between an artist and people who are interested in what they're doing. And it'll be less dependent on systems. And people complain a lot in the music business, artists, about Spotify's the big whale. So that's the one that gets the most complaints, but obviously there's other people in the game. But what everybody needs to remember, and I'm not defending Spotify, but what everyone needs to remember is Spotify was only possible with the deals that the major labels made with Spotify. Yeah. So when people complain about the amount of money that Spotify is paying the artists, the labels set that up.
Yeah. Yeah. And artists have always complained about the music business, regardless. Like
but what I'm saying is if you go back before Spotify, streaming music, people say Spotify, but streaming music became a thing. Obviously, there's other Tidal and stuff like that. The music business was in the shitter. I mean, you could make any money as a recording artist. So streaming brought the music business back in a very positive way. But in order for that deal to happen, the record labels cut a deal with Spotify. So there's a lot of heat going towards the streamers, and there's lots of arguments to be made. And I support them all because we're generally speaking, we're all being underpaid. But it was the record labels who own the rights that set those deals into motion.
Yeah.
So the reason I'm not even saying this to complain. What I'm saying is I think the future will be more like Chance the Rapper or something, where people will figure out very early on, I have something, and they'll set up their own business and just deal with their own fans in the most direct way possible. It'll allow them to make the most amount of money, have the most amount of power, have the most amount of creative freedom. And then if you want to hear them, well, his music's still on Spotify. You know what I'm saying? There's no compromise necessary. But in the world you and I grew up in, when you were trying to be a fledgling musician back in LA, me at about the same time, we had one system. And it was their way or the highway. Now, thankfully, through this weird time of change, now I think it's going to open up, and I think you're going to see a tremendous amount of innovation in the arts.
I hope so. What gave me the confidence, the delusional confidence to make it in the music business is Queensryche got huge on their first single, Queen of the Reich. So, and I was like, I think I was 13. So I thought, oh, all you need is one good song and you could be huge. So for the first few years of me, in bands and writing music, I was under the impression that, look at Queensryche. They wrote one great song and they're huge. That's all you have to do. I thought it was that easy. And I was so sure I could write one good song. I'm gonna be a rock star. I'm gonna write one good song and I'm gonna be just like Queensryche. And then by the time you mature, you're like 17, 18, you realize, oh my God, I had talked so much shit. Even though I realized that was like, I was being, nothing was further from the truth. It takes way more, obviously, than one song, but I had no choice. I was in so deep. I'm like, I talk so much shit. I gotta try to make it. But so now Melancholy is huge, and now you guys do Adore, which you guys got a more of a gothic feel. I loved it. I thought Adore was great. Like I said, Blank Page was great. Perfect is a perfect song. But the hardcore grunge fans were like, "Oh, you guys are turning goth," and I was like, I was into the Cure and Depeche Mode, so I was like into it. I love that that you started using like go go go.
Yeah,
I love that shit.
Well, we were goth first, and that's where it got lost in the story too. We were a goth band first before Jimmy Chamberlain joined the band, and we kind of went more in a rock direction. So when Jimmy had left the band in '96, we just kind of went back to being more of a goth band again. Do
you have any memories of the process that occurred with the creation of Blank Page?
My feelings into something positive.
And then the bridge, it turns into like a Beatles song.
What I think is probably the best knee slice in the game. It's called a row drag. Super simple, awesome combo. Before we get to the truck, throw a little pass on top of that. You know what I mean? So we're gonna get really good at that truck transition. How about you get really ninja with the row drag? The knee slice. Push them down, butterfly, boom, bam, boom. Here. 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 And then the fishnet, knee to the stomach, low the handle, break the frames, and then boom. Pull this out, grab my forearm, pop, pop. That's all the best shit from Twister Sack Control right there in one throw. You guys want to go back and forth a little bit? Ready? Let's go.
I wish I could sit here and tell you I remember, and I don't remember. I mean, I can picture me standing at a microphone in a studio and the music playing, and it was just coming to me, and that's those weird times where you're the author. It says my name on, written by, but it felt like somebody else was like talking through me. It was very strange.
Yeah. Yeah. And then that, do you remember how you recorded that in the bridge that there was, it's not a guitar solo, but it's like a bunch of guitar sounds with like super reverb, and it sounds like
I don't. Yeah. That album was so much experimentation. Stuff would change 20 or 30 times during the process. So it's like why version 4 as opposed to version 14 or version 32. I couldn't tell you. It was every day I would walk in, it would be like I would change my mind again. And the people I was working with were like, "Oh my God, is this ever going to end?" It's like I was searching for something, but it would be like, "Hey, I'm going to go out. Where are you going? I don't know. How do you know when you're going to get there? I don't know. I'll just know when I get there." And that's how I felt. I would be walking down the street and be like, "Is this the house? No. Oh, I think this is the house. Stay an hour. No, not the house." That's how it was 8 months of that, just wandering around. My mother had died so I think that had a lot to do with it. It was like I was trying to find a feeling that I didn't know how to locate.
You mentioned your mother passing. My grandma passed in 2004, and it was, my grandpa had died a year before, and that hit me, but it didn't hit me as hard as when my grandma died and when they were lowering her into her grave and my mom's losing her shit. I had big shades on with tears coming. I mean, it was a rough one. And I remember driving up the 101 freeway after her funeral, and I had Machina and just going through tracks. I love that album. That's the next one. And I had that on, and I'm like asking my grandmother if she's with me. I go, "If you're with me, please let me know. Are you with me? Are you still, are you here? Give me a sign." And then I'm driving up the 101. I'm going north, going up the hill over Lancashire, and With Every Light comes on. And I don't know what that song's about. Your songs, like, I don't know what most of your songs are about. You know what I mean?
Neither do I.
They're so vague and poetic. It doesn't even matter. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. I think Roberta Flack said that once, and I'll never forget that. But I never knew what Cherub Rock was about. I'm like, I just love it, I never knew what Disarm was about. I just love it. But the same thing with Every Light. But
Nice to see you.
With Every Light comes on, I just start bawling, tears just streaming down but I wasn't like crying like, it was just tears, I'm driving, and it was odd because I'm not crying, but tears were just pouring down my face during the song, and I'm like, whoa, that's fucking weird.
Well, it's funny that you keyed on that song because...
Let me tell you the story. I know what you're going to tell me. Let me finish the story.
Oh, no,
I know what you're going to tell me. I know what you're going to tell me. This is what happened. So later on that night, I didn't know what that was. I'm like, whoa, I started crying during With Every Light. So I get home and I'm flipping through the channels, and I flipped through VH1 and it said tonight, Smashing Pumpkins going to be on Storytellers. And I'm like, oh, fucking way cool. Oh my God, I would have never known. I was just flipping through the channel. It said tonight at 11, Smashing Pumpkins, Storytellers. I'm like, oh shit, awesome. I'm fucking so stoked. Put it on, fucking loving it. You're crushing it. You're talking about every song. And then when you get to With Every Light, you said that you wrote that because your mom had just died and you went to some medium to see if she was still with you. And you said you didn't get into details on what the medium said, but you just said, I found out that she is with me, and I went home and I wrote this song.
Oh, interesting.
And right there, I'm like, what the fuck? Dude, I'm telling you, man, I wrote about, I told that story in a book I wrote about jiu-jitsu. I told that story.
Oh, wow.
That story freaked me the fuck out. What are the odds? I'm crying during that song, and then later on that night, you talk about what it's about. It's about you trying to connect with your mother.
Yeah. Well, that's the beauty of music, right? It says something that's can't be put into words, right? Because if we just say, if I just read you the lyrics, you wouldn't have the same reaction. You know what I mean? Something about the feeling, the key, the changes, the sound of the voice, obviously.
Oh man, that was magic. You wrote.
But that's what I think. But I think that's part of it is because I know what the feeling is I'm after. I'm putting it in everything. I want the drums to have a certain. You know what I'm saying? So the painting of the song without the vocal is in the same zip code of what you were experiencing, right?
Yeah.
And then the lyrics, and like you said, you didn't even know what they were about. They're also in that same zip code. So it was interesting. It hit you at that moment. That's a pretty interesting story.
Yeah, and then that night, you explained what the song was about, the song that I was crying about, or crying to. I was like, holy shit. Like I said, I told that story in a jujitsu book I wrote. Had like a little mini bio, and someone put together a highlight reel of like a bunch of my jujitsu matches, like my whole jujitsu career, over that song because I had talked about.
Oh wow!
And it goes
That's cool.
together so fucking perfect. It goes with jujitsu. Like it's just a bunch of matches where I'm choking people out, and it's with every line.
Well, that's really why I wrote the song was so you could choke people out.
Oh man, so that album that With Every Light is on, fucking amazing album. Machina? What?
You know what's coming out again? Do you know this whole story?
No, what's coming?
Okay, so we're putting out the album was made as another double album. We ended up not putting out a double album for a variety of reasons. So 25 years after now, that the actual album is coming out complete, 48 songs.
Oh shit!
It'll be available as a box set through my tea house, which is madamzuzus.com. And it's not out yet. It's coming soon.
Hell yeah!
And then the parent company that we're still in business with, which is Universal, they're putting out the OG version of the album on vinyl. So your timing is good there because that's all coming back out. And I think that part of that package, I think the song you're talking about has been remixed and remastered. So everything sounds really beautiful.
Dude, I mean, let's talk about that album a little bit more. Age of Innocence. Yo, that fucking bridge. Age of Innocence.
So you're getting super deep here. You're gonna lose all your fans.
I don't give a shit. Like I can care less. This is for me. This one podcast is
not even recording. I'm gonna find out.
Yeah, this one's just for me and super crazy hardcore Pumpkins fans. How you
This is
doing?
my son. He's coming to tell me dinner's ready. So I'm doing an interview. I'll be down in a minute. Okay.
Hi. I got a 13-year-old.
Oh yeah, so you understand. He's 9. So
yeah, awesome, man. So the fuzzy guitar part on the bridge of Age of Innocence.
Yeah,
talking about how like the first half of that riff is like in 3s and then it ends in 4s.
Yeah,
dude.
You know your stuff. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I think that was the last song written for the record. It was one of those weird.
I never get tired of that bridge, man. That whole song. That whole song is.
Yeah, we remixed that. We remixed that for the album, so I think you'll enjoy that too. Yeah, I don't even know what to say. I mean, the band had decided to break up before we made the record, so we made the record on the idea that the band's going to make this record, final record, go on tour, and then break up. Well, we didn't even make it through the first couple months of that, and then the bass player ended up leaving,
Darcy.
Darcy. So it was a very strange time, and it's a bit weird. It would be like, going to your partner and saying, "Hey, I really want to break up with you, but if we could stay together for like another 2 years and then we'll break up."
That's so crazy.
It put a weird. I thought it would like make everyone chill out.
Yeah. Like,
okay, well, there's only so many more days I got to deal with this, and then we're all going to go. It actually made it weird because it was like this cloud was over everything. It was like making an album under sort of threat of death or something. So it gave the record a really strange feeling, and it's unlike any record we made, I think, because of the atmospherics of that. But then what's really interesting is it was not well received at the time. The record label hated it. It didn't sell. It sold well, but it didn't sell. It wasn't melancholy, and so okay, life moves on. Band breaks up. Well, 25 years later, it's now considered a classic, and this is the most talked about album we have, and I'm talking about everything we've ever done. This is the most talked about album.
I fucking love Wound. I just recently found a YouTube video of you doing Wound on acoustic guitar. It's just you and a guitar.
Oh wow, okay.
Yo, fuck, I love it. How the first half of that riff is like in 3s and then it ends in 4s.
Yeah,
dude.
You know your stuff. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I think that was the last song written for the record. It was one of those weird.
I never get tired of that bridge, man. That whole song. That whole song is.
Yeah, we remixed that. We remixed that for the album, so I think you'll enjoy that too. Yeah. I don't even know what to say. I mean, the band had decided to break up before we made the record. So we made the record on the idea that the band's going to make this record, final record, go on tour, and then break up. Well, we didn't even make it through the first couple months of that, and then the bass player ended up leaving.
Darcy.
Yeah, Darcy. So it was a very strange time, and it's a bit weird. It would be like, going to your partner and saying, "Hey, I really want to break up with you, but if we could stay together for like another 2 years, and then we'll break up."
That's so crazy.
It put a weird. I thought it would like make everyone chill out. Like, okay, well, there's only so many more days I got to deal with this, and then we're all going to go. It actually made it weird because it was like this cloud was over everything. It was like making an album under sort of threat of death or something. So it gave the record a really strange feeling, and it's unlike any record we made, I think, because of the atmospherics of that. But then what's really interesting is it was not well received at the time. The record label hated it. It didn't sell. It sold well, but it didn't sell. It wasn't melancholy, and so okay, life moves on. Band breaks up. Well, 25 years later, it's now considered a classic, and this is the most talked about album we have, and I'm talking about everything we've ever done. This is the most talked about album.
I fucking love Wound. I just recently found a YouTube video of you doing Wound on acoustic guitar. It's just you and a guitar.
Oh wow, okay.
Yo, fuck, I love it.
It's a beautiful song. I love the lyric in that. That's what Jimmy Chamberlain, drummer of the band's one of his favorite songs all time. So yeah, you got good taste, man. You're picking good stuff.
I love the fact that in Wound that there's like 4 different parts, like vocal parts. You know what I'm talking about?
We were crazy back then, man. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I don't know if it was the drugs or the pressure or the death sentence of the band. I mean, it's hard because like I said, I've just been putting together this box set for the last couple of years. It's hard because I listen to stuff and think like, man, what were we thinking? Because I can't emotionally trace back to the spot.
That part in Wound, your voice. You have like 4 different voices. I love that shit, dude. I love your super quiet falsetto thing. I fucking.
Well, you know where that came from, right? Because I tried to sing like Robert Plant, that didn't work. I tried to sing like Eldridge from Sisters of Mercy, that didn't work. I tried
Sometimes
to sing like Robert. What's that?
Sometimes you'd use your little Andrew Eldridge voice. Sometimes.
Yeah, but I'm saying is I just didn't have the chop for it, so I had to. So eventually, I just ran out of people to imitate, and the only thing I could do was sing like me. And then when I would sing like me, people would say, your voice is too weird. Like, don't do that. And I would think, well, I don't have any other choice. This is the only voice. This is the only way I could sing because I was in choir when I was a kid, so I had learned to sing like, I want you to be my friend, that kind of, and I thought, well, I'm not singing like that. So,
so were you going to say, like you said, did you emulate somebody? Is there someone that like?
No, I couldn't. That was the thing. I didn't have the ability to emulate anyone. I no matter what I did, I only sounded like me. And for a long time, I was told that me wasn't going to work. In fact, there's a letter up in the attic somewhere that says, it's from a major label that says this band will never sell records. And the reason they will never sell records is because of this guy's voice.
Yeah, I was hearing that too, because, you're not singing like Jeff Tate. You're not singing like Rob Halford. Can you imagine you were singing like King Diamond or something? That'd be hilarious.
I wish. I mean, King is one of the greatest singers of all time.
Oh, hell, he's still pulling it off.
Oh, but unbelievable.
Shit, he's still pulling it off. Like
unbelievable.
And, my friends, coming from the 80s and, metal, I was, people would say, his voice sucks. Or I'm like, yo, it's the most unique voice fucking out there, man. I
honestly, it doesn't hurt me because I wished I could have sang like that. I really do. I wished I could have sang. I mean, there's so many people I would have given my kidney for to sing like. I just couldn't. My voice is just too weird. It's just. So when people would react negatively to my voice, it didn't really bother me because I just thought, well, this is the only way I can sing. So my choice is don't sing. You know what I mean? It's like there's no C version. It's like I sing and it is what it is, or I don't sing, which I'm sure some people would have preferred, but that was what it was. And by the way, I'm writing the songs too. So if somebody had come along, maybe sang my songs better than maybe I would have considered it, but I was never in that situation.
You guys break up. You did Zwan. You did Future Embrace. Mina Loy, one of the great. That's my.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Mina Loy is so fucking good. I actually sampled it and made a hip hop song out of it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I do a lot of hip hop, and what I do is I make hip hop for people that don't usually like hip hop, because all my stuff comes from like Marilyn Manson samples, Depeche Mode samples. Like right now, I'm taking Depeche Mode music and mixing it with DMX, and it's gonna be called.
Oh, that's awesome.
Depeche MX. Oh, dude, it's. You can't.
I love DMX. He's one of the great.
He was the realest one out there. So, I love Future Embrace. I love fucking Mina Loy, one of the greatest songs ever. And then you went back and did Zeitgeist, Smashing Pumpkins. You brought Jimmy Chamberlain back, but it wasn't really the whole band. You had a bunch of different guys. I love That's the Way My Love Is. One of the.
Oh, you like that song? Cool.
Oh, dude, the solo to That's the Way My Love Is. The solo to that and the solo to Stand Inside My Love, those two things, those solos are just basically like the vocal melody. You know what I mean? But
yeah.
you're shredding the vocal melody. I love it. The solo to Stand Inside My Love, or Your Love, Stand Inside Your Love, that solo, I never get tired of that shit. Love that song. I remember reading somewhere that you wrote it like in 10 minutes or something. Like that one just all came out.
No, you mean talking the song or the solo?
The whole song, Stand Inside My Love. You were talking about the song.
It was one of those. It's in my mind. It's the last time the original band in a room found that magic, whatever that was. So that was the last. That was the last time the four of us were in a room, and I had an idea, and within 20 minutes we had the whole song. It was just, again. I would love to sit here and tell you what a smart guy I am, but it was a lot of these times it just kind of happened. It just.
I think that's the way it happens. Like to set out to write a great, like, look at all the greatest bands of all time, like Metallica. Depeche Mode is like, they're my gods, right? Depeche Mode, Smashing Pumpkins, Alice in Chains. But the last 3 Depeche Mode albums, I don't know one song. Like, it's like, how does that happen? Like the last 3 Metallica albums, I don't know one song. How does that happen? Like, it's like that connection to like the Akashic records got severed with something. Because what you're describing is all these amazing magical songs. And you're not the only one that says stuff like this. Everyone says like it just writes itself. I don't remember. It just came to me one night, and we knew it was magic, but we just captured it. And that's what everyone says. And it seems like that's what it is. It's a connection to another dimension, a connection to God, some kind of connection. And that connection has something to do with some frequency, and all emotions are a different frequency. So I don't know what it is. It's like when you're vibrating at you have a certain emotion, you could get fed magic from the universe. I don't know. I'm just guessing. I don't know.
No, I think I think there's that. And I think it's also that, it doesn't matter. Pick your band. So let's pick the Beatles because it's easy, right? In the beginning, there was Love Me Do, but at some point they found their way to Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, or Fixing a Hole, or Paxman. What I'm saying is the journey is also, I think, what makes it so attractive is, so you have this divine inspiration meeting this, hey, I've never been here before. And something happens in that I've never been here before that I think that takes the audience on a sense of like, they see the thing through your eyes. Like, you're like, holy shit, how did I end up here? Right. And I think that's where most of the great music comes from. The artist almost has to be in a fresh place. And we live in a culture now where, in many ways, people don't want their favorite artist to change. They kind of arrive at there's a perfect version of every band in their mind. And I think that on some level is limiting to the songwriters, because they know that if they veer too far off the particular script, like Spider-Man 7, you know what I mean? If you go to Spider-Man and he doesn't do the web, you're like, what the fuck? Why did I come to this movie? Well, it's the same for bands. People get excited, but they want it to rub the same thing that, some record from the past rubbed their temple on. So I think that's what makes it difficult, but that's not to blame the audience. I think it's up to the artist to solve that equation. So even if the audience does want the same thing, okay, well, then you have to figure out how to make Spider-Man 7 fresh.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna get in trouble in a second, just so you know. So
I know you got to
meet the real. You're gonna meet the real boss here in a second when she comes up.
I know. I could sense it's almost over, but I wanted to tell you the story real quick.
Sure.
So, you get Smashing Pumpkins back together, not the whole band. You guys. Then I saw you at Irvine Meadows. The light show, it was a decent stage show. You guys didn't put that much money into it. You guys, it was a great show, but it wasn't like extravagant, right? And then all of a sudden you do a legit reunion where you bring James Eha back.
Yeah.
And you got Jimmy Chamberlain. And then I go to see you at the fucking Forum. And you remember the Forum show? It was 2018, 2019?
Yeah, those were the last shows of the tour. So you saw the end of the whole thing.
So I went there with Danny Lohner. I don't know if you know Danny Lohner. He was
Of course,
in
Danny,
Nine Inch
yeah.
Nails.
I know Danny for 25, 30 years.
He's one of the biggest cynics in music, just like me, because working 10 years at the strip club made me hate music. I was forced to listen to shitty music all day, 8 hours. So I talk mad shit on music. It's got to be fucking, it's got to like hit my soul for me to be into it. I've been to 1,000 concerts. That fucking show, dude. It was like you guys had the budget to do like a Madonna type thing where every song was like a different production. Every song was its own video. And I swear to God, I shit you not, man. I shit you not. I'm sitting there with Danny Lohner, and after every song, you sounded great. You sounded great. You had your little chick singer in the background. Keep that chick. You guys sounded so good together. Your voice never sounded better. It was so good. And every song, you were just dropping banger after banger. And I'm not even shitting you, dude. After every song, everybody around me everybody just looks at each other and they're like, what the fuck did we just witness? After every song, everybody looked at each other all around. Everybody was, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
And then you drop another banger. Then tonight. Then you came out with a piano and then you fucking played Stairway to Heaven. Like, you're not supposed to do that, but you crushed it. And then,
Thank you.
Dude, I swear to God, Danny does not fucking flip out. I was texting my wife going, yo, this show is the greatest show I've ever seen. And then Danny goes, dude, get off your phone, check it out. Like, he was mad that I was on my phone, and I was telling my wife, like, this is the greatest fucking show ever. Every song is like a Madonna concert, but with the greatest music ever. It was just banger after banger after. I remember going, what the fuck is next? And then when you did the solo, dude, I had no idea how fucking much of a shredder you are. You buried all, because it was such like a big production. It wasn't just like a dude. It wasn't just like Ace Frehley going out there and playing a solo or like a random guitar player out there and a spotlight on him. Dude, it was like a show. Your guitar solo was like, I want to see that show again. You know what I'm saying?
We have it recorded, so that's the good part. We did record it.
How expensive was that?
It was very expensive, but my argument behind the scenes was like, look, James has come back after 18 years, right?
For all your 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu merchandise, please visit 10thplanetjj.com/shop. We also got a Look Into It t-shirt that just dropped. Thank you very much for your support.
And we don't know how long this is going to last. Of course, now we've been together again for, I think, 8 years. But I was like, if this is going to be the last tour, we're going out swinging. So, because normally we're not a band that goes out of our way to make people happy, which sounds strange, but that's just the way we've always
You
done
generally have like a basic lights, basic little show, just like that Irvine Meadow, just basic. But this one was insane. It was like the craziest show I've ever seen.
But to finish the thought, that the idea was like, look, if this is the end, which was in a way the end that we didn't do right in 2000, let's make it like a real party, like a New Orleans funeral. Let's really go out as best we could. And I think we did something like 42 shows on that run. So you saw, basically, we had the whole thing dialed in. And this is the only time I think we've ever gone out and really tried to play a show that was really like, look, we want to make everybody happy, because we understand that's not the way we've done it. But for this tour, we're going to try to make everybody happy. So that's probably you saw the only time we've ever really done that.
Yo, dude, I swear to God, I went to go get a fucking beer, and in line, everybody's talking about it. Everyone's going.
Well, God bless that. I mean, it's been
strangers were just telling each other, going, dude, are you fucking flipping out right now? Everybody was tripping the fuck.
Well, it was the right decision in the sense that, we've been back together 3/4 of the 4 for over 7 years now. We're about to do a full tour of Europe, a full tour of Asia. We just did South America last year for the first time in 12 years. And then we're going to the Middle East this year for the first time ever. So it was the right decision to say, look, if we're going to come back, it's going to be a different vibe than it was back in the day. Because back in the day, we were very much of the time where it was really more about the experience of the show, and the band was part of the experience, meaning we were experiencing it while you were experiencing the audience and vice versa. So it was less about being entertaining and more about having a moment together. And when it worked, it was amazing. You know, people were jumping off of balconies. And when it was bad, I mean, people just threw bottles at my head, cursed me out. I mean, I still meet people in airports who are mad about shit I did in the 90s on stage. Because as far as I was concerned, it was a form of performance. We weren't trying to be like every other fucking band, you know, nor were the bands of our generation. The idea was we were trying to bring in something different, and standing up there acting like you're in the happiest place in the world every night at 8 p.m. is not truly genuine if you really think about it. What's genuine is you bring whoever you are up on stage and you just let it rip from there. So if you're in a bad mood, you're in a really bad mood. You just go. And so that's the way we rolled.
Are you going to do that again? Can you do it one more time?
You have to talk to the band. I mean, there's some talk next year about, you know, we're on the 30th anniversary right now, Melancholy, which was our biggest album. So there's talk about doing stuff with that. There's talk about doing other stuff. So you have to talk to the band. Everybody's got different opinions.
Talk to James.
Please do.
I met him once. I met him at Danny's house once.
Yeah, he's out with Perfect Circle right now, so you can find him there. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's a weird thing. Here's the last thing I'll tell you before I get in trouble with my wife. Me, Mr. Big Rock Star, you know, I'm afraid of my wife. The music is such a strange thing that there's no. What's the famous line Mike Tyson says? You know, everybody has a game plan until they get punched in the face.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And you've been there. That's kind of how it is. It's like, I know what everybody thinks is a good concert, but until you stand there, you don't really know what a good concert is. And by the way, it changes every night. Everybody will tell you what a good song of yours is. Can you write another one? It doesn't work like that. You know, when you talk about a song like Disarm, there's only one. You know what I mean? It's just the way it's meant to be. Even if you paid me $1 million and said, can you write Disarm 2? I don't think I could. You know what I'm saying? It's so mercurial, the whole entire process. So if you just let yourself be whatever you are and let it go wherever it's going to go, it actually ends up being a lot more true and a lot more interesting than trying to engineer. It's got to go here and it's got to land here and be like the end of every Marvel movie where everybody lives. You know what I mean? Does it make sense the way I'm saying it?
It does, man.
Yeah.
It does, man.
You got to be willing. You got to be willing to lose is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe that's, I don't know if there's a parallel in fighting, but if you try not to lose, you're going to lose.
Yeah. Fighting not to lose is never good.
That's what I'm saying. So the only way to be in that arena, this arena, the arena of songwriting and riffs and drums and 50 million watts and people screaming and people throwing stuff at you and people being mad at you from 20 years ago. The only way to win is just to get up there and just let it rip. Just let it fucking go. And if you lose, you lose. That really is, to me, the energetic hallmark of the 90s musical generation. We were willing to say, fuck your rules, fuck your ideas, fuck your dance routines, fuck it all. Fuck it all. Like, I mean, my dad was a professional musician. He couldn't believe what we were doing up there because to him, it was like, why would you not go up and say hello? And we were like, well, that's lame. Everybody says hello. Fuck saying hello. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, we would play a 40-minute song to end the show and half the people would leave. And then, you know, Cliff Bernstein, who was Metallica's manager, would call me up and say, you know, you're losing a lot of t-shirt sales. And I'd say, so what? You know, it's like, it's just the way it was, man. It's just, so that's all I know. That's the way I do it. Anyway, gotta go, Eddie. God bless.
Real quick, is there any chance of Darcy coming back? Any chance or no chance?
Zero.
Okay. One last thing before you go. Peace and Love. You did it at the San Francisco residency. If put that on the new album. I fucking love Peace and Love. I actually did like a Weird Al Yankovic to it. I redid it and just changed all the lyrics into like some comedy song. I'll send it to you.
Please do.
I'd love to hear and Love is so good. Put that on the album. I love you, man. Thank you for everything. This was the greatest podcast I've ever done.
And let's say thanks to Joe Rogan. He brought us together here today. Yeah.
Oh, Joe hooked it up. Thank you, dude. I appreciate the time, man.
God bless you.
Enjoy your family. God bless.
Take care. Bye.
The Jiu Jitsu Dojo is the ultimate training ground for life. Jiu Jitsu will accelerate the evolution of your being your consciousness, your soul. Through this amazing art, you will prove to yourself that you can master anything you set your mind to.
Happy birthday, Eddie Bravo.
I leave for Brazil tomorrow. Are you the Fear Factor guy? I'm like 6 pounds over. Time to sweat it out. Just imagine someone that has no idea how different your game is.
I'll tell you what this weekend was, man. It was a culmination point where all your hard work comes to like one great moment in time. You showed that you're a fucking champion. Guy who goes against convention. You created your own shit and figured interesting ways to get around problems in jiu-jitsu. And shows you that great things are possible if you work hard, if you dedicate yourself, and you use your creativity, and you push through. Your own human potential just goes up.
My 10th Planet Association has grown rapidly to over 70 academies worldwide, and their curriculums are all synced to 10th Planet headquarters located in downtown Los Angeles. I'm Eddie Bravo. I hope to see you on the mats.